Chapter 366, Lamenting the Loss. Name: Samael Kaiser Theosbane. Spirit Essence: 48,799 50 thousandths. Soul Rank: B. Open hollow corner bracket. Absorb 1201 essence to level up close hollow corner bracket. Soul Potential: SS. Origin Card: Matterweave. Acquire cards. Ah, it was a sad sight. I didn't have any acquire cards left anymore. Not on me and neither in my soul arsenal. Truly sad. My robe was also damaged so badly that its dimensional storage pocket was completely inaccessible. I had lost everything stored in it, a few extra cards being among those items. And as for the ones in my soul arsenal, well, it turns out that when you die, the essence in your soul evaporates out of your body. It literally leaves your flesh. And since all the cards are nothing but crystallized essence themselves, they dissolve back into it and vanish as well. You see where this is going, right? The moment my heart stopped, the cards I had painstakingly collected turned into raw essence and drifted away like sparkling dandelion seeds, leaving my soul. Now my arsenal was empty. Sad, as I said. But at least I still had my origin card. I'd never heard of an awakened dying for 7 minutes and coming back to life, so I didn't know what to expect or what the procedure was. But if all my acquire cards had faded, well, then I could only call it a miracle that my origin card still remained. Or was it really a miracle? It had been 3 days since I woke up. The first thing I noticed after inspecting my body thoroughly was that my shade mark had shifted to the right of my lower abdomen. It sprawled across my stomach and hip like some sort of tribal tattoo, twisting and curving into dark strings of unfamiliar letters in the center. Juliana commented on that, saying she didn't know I had gotten a new tattoo and asked when did I get it. I had no answer for her. Because I never got it. It had simply moved from lost my right forearm to my lower belly. For some reason, that creeped the fuck out of me. Because that meant I couldn't escape whatever this mark was, not by any usual means, at least. If I asked my aunt to put my soul in another body, would it follow me there as well? I shuddered at the thought, when suddenly another eerie realization hit me. What if it really wasn't a miracle that I was revived? Kong said I had been dead for 7 minutes. Alexia had patched me up and healed all my fatal wounds, yes, but she hadn't brought me back to life. She just restored my body. I still wasn't breathing, my heart still wasn't beating, and my body was still as cold as the ice I had lain upon. So, how? The answer was apparent. If Asmodeus' words were to be believed, then I was a shade of the Mother of Mercy, the primordial deity of death, mistress of the oldest death. And through this mark, I had once already tapped into the ability to inflict the oldest death, whatever it was. So the connection was undeniable. Then would it really be so far-fetched to theorize that the mark didn't just allow me to deal death, but to define my own terms with it? But, no, wait, unless what I tapped into before was just one facet of her power, Mother of Mercy's domain shouldn't be death, it should be erasure. Death is a transition. You live, you die, you reincarnate, and then you repeat the cycle. I could guess as much with my own first-hand experience with death. I had lived Noah, I had died, and then I had reincarnated as my current self before remembering my prior life. So death was indeed a transition. But Mother of Mercy's authority felt much more final than simple death. It was much more absolute than simple death. It was utter and complete erasure. It was the return of something to nothing at all. So then, oh, damn, I muttered. Then maybe I didn't come back to life as much as I simply refused to leave. Maybe the reason I never truly died was that my soul never parted from my flesh. I gazed inside my toga and stared at the tribal pattern on my lower abdomen. Maybe this mark wasn't just etched on my body. Maybe it was etched onto my soul itself, anchoring me to this plane like a curse so I wouldn't re-enter the cycle of reincarnation. That was a much scarier thought. That meant I would never die. I either needed to be completely erased from existence or my soul would forever be trapped in the mortal realm. Sam, stop brooding and come help us with the mast. I blinked. Vince's shout tore me out of my internal monologue. Looking up and squinting against the shimmering glare of the Lake of Grief, I spotted the majestic structure of the ship we were going to use to sail out of this purgatory. And when I say majestic, I mean majestic. It was a glorious, iridescent monstrosity. In shape and size, it resembled a slightly smaller version of a Greek warship over 25 meters long with a narrow beam of 7 to 8 meters. Its keel was built from logs and saplings harvested from the jungle. But the hull, oh, the hull was what drew the eye. Alexia had truly outdone herself. I was so impressed by her it wasn't even a joke. She had layered the translucent carapaces of giant crabs like dragon scales across the wooden frame, raising the walls of the vessel to more than 5 meters from its base. Also, the shells didn't just provide defense. They were naturally buoyant and possessed a strange prismatic quality that seemed to turn them invisible in water. So it gave our ship a stealth edge, which was good since the Lake of Grief was supposedly full of sea monsters the size of skyscrapers. While it was still docked on the beach, I had no doubts about its sturdiness in water. What I did have doubt in was my companions. Vince, Lily, and Michael were struggling to lash a tall black trunk that was going to serve as our mast into place. There was also one tiny problem. We didn't have a sailcloth. Obviously. So Alexia and Juliana were patching saplings and thin, leathery membranes peeled off from crab legs to fashion a makeshift replacement. Meanwhile, Kong and Ray had ventured into the forest to gather the last vines that we were going to need on our voyage. It was a dangerous task now that ferocious beasts were beginning to repopulate the jungle. Not to mention, since God Who Eats Us was dead now, those beasts were also likely to spill into the valley and maybe even reach the shore. In short, we needed to get the fuck out of there as fast as possible. So it made sense why Vince was asking for my help. But could that idiot not see that I was one hand down? Help you how, you dumb fuck? I barked, getting up. Do you expect me to lift the mast with my teeth? Use your power, you dramatic princess. Vince hollered back, tugging at the root rope securing the massive trunk. I wanted to smack him. My power doesn't work on organic matter yet. His face turned a delightful shade of beet red, either because I was annoying him or because the mast was threatening to tilt and slam down onto Michael. Do something or Mikey will be crushed. He cried. I rolled my eyes and turned toward the cabin. You got this. Trust yourself. Arg, Tom. I heard Michael scream and the bone-rattling thud of heavy timber falling. Gods, so dramatic. Without looking back, I went inside. Chapter 367, to run. Or to bring out hot crazy scale. From the inside, the cabin was really simple. It was just one big platform with several partitioning walls dividing the space into separate rooms. It was barely functional, it was cramped, and it smelled heavily of brine and damp wood, but compared to the idea of shivering in the freezing winds outside on the beach, it felt like a 5-star resort. I walked toward the center room, my toga rustling softly against the floor. Lying on the rough bed frame inside, I found the featureless white mask and picked it up to inspect its smooth surface. Earlier, I had borrowed an appraisal card from Alexia, so I used it on the mask. Name, rank, type, item, description, enchantment, maker's inscription. Just as I thought. I dismissed the appraisal card with a frustrated sigh. The damn thing was blank. Not a single line of text. You see, when an artificer forges an item, they enchant their creation by engraving runes onto it. Aside from granting enchantments, runes can also be used to properly label the item, basically a way to tell its name, rank, type, abilities, and description. An appraisal card simply reads those description runes and translates the information into a simple language that the rest of us can understand. But if the maker never bothered to label their work, then even appraisal wouldn't find any data to relay. Origin cards and most non-man-made acquire cards had such sophisticated rune patterns that most appraisal cards could read them naturally. Man-made items, however, required proper labeling because the quality of a human's work would obviously be inferior to nature. Now, just to be clear, I'm not calling Vaughn's work shabby compared to natural cards. The guy was a god of craftsmanship, after all. Yet when he created this item, and many others, he clearly wasn't in the best state of mind. So he probably didn't, or perhaps couldn't, invest the time needed to refine every unimportant detail. You could also argue that he probably just didn't want the world to know what he had made. A mask designed to hide from the heavens shouldn't exactly come with a convenient instruction manual for any random appraiser to stumble upon. But it was the same case with every other divine artifact we recovered from his corpse. Even my Vajra showed nothing. So, yes, my guess was that Vaughn didn't label the items because he made them strictly for his own personal use. Well, it's not like I need the instruction manual anyway. I knew precisely what enchantment each artifact had. I had thoroughly tested them all out in the game. So I sent a pulse of essence into the unnervingly light mask held between my fingers, and it rippled in response like it was made of liquid metal. Then, right before my very eyes, its shape began to change. The flat, featureless white surface began to fold and elongate to wrap around my wrist. Its color bled away from stark white, darkening into a deep black. Soon enough, the mask wasn't a mask anymore. It was now an obsidian band of polished glass, circling my left wrist like a minimalist cuff. Good. Carrying a mask around everywhere would have been troublesome, especially with one hand. And for the journey ahead, I wanted to keep it on me at all times. It was a powerful artifact. Depending on the user's rank, the mask's power ranged from simple invisibility to putting the wearer onto the fringes of reality itself, where they could neither be seen nor remembered as long as it covered their face. Right now, at my B rank, I could only use it to slip past most sensory perceptions like sound, smell, and sight for a limited time. 10 minutes, if I remembered correctly. But that was more than enough. Because its strongest enchantment was its passive one, a telepathic shield that protected my mind from external probes and would flag the location of anyone trying to divine my presence. Between that, and the Vajra that allowed me to unleash around 10 to 20 million volts of raw lightning, I was pretty satisfied with my share of loot. Was it worth dying over? I looked down at the black cuff on my wrist. Then I glanced at the empty space where my right arm used to be. Oh yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it. After retrieving the Mask of Nobody and lamenting the tragic loss of my acquire card some more, I decided it was probably time to stop wasting time and go check on Michael, and maybe help them with the mast. But just as I was about to leave the cabin, something on the side of the bed caught my eye. It was a bracelet that looked like a loop of fingernails threaded together by a strand of silver elastic. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, wait, I had seen it before. It was Juliana's. She had been wearing it as an anklet the last time I noticed it. I vaguely remembered being curious about it back then. And seeing it again now, that curiosity came right back. So I picked it up and began examining the fake human nails with mild interest. Why would any girl even want something this bizarre? I muttered with an amused smile. God, she really does have weird tastes. Scoffing, I was about to toss it back onto the bed, when something about the bracelet caught my attention again. The quality, more specifically, the quality of the fake nails. Up close, they didn't resemble cheap plastic or hardened gel. I remembered noticing that detail before as well. They had a translucent, pearlescent sheen, almost like the inner lining of a seashell, but underneath that was a texture that felt strangely familiar. I ran my thumb along the edge of one of the nails. It was sharp, properly sharp, like something it had been carefully trimmed and filed. Quote. Oh fuck. My heart suddenly dropped into my stomach. Hastily, I summoned my origin card and used my power on one of the nails, trying to mold the acrylic into a different shape. I waited for a second, then a second more. But nothing happened. My ability refused to work on it. I felt my hands starting to shake. A sense of lightheadedness crept in and I felt short of breath. Keratin. These fake nails weren't fake at all. They weren't plastic, or gel, or some exotic resin. They were organic, made from fibrous protein. They were real.